Good morning. My name is Justin Murphy Mancini, and I have the pleasure of serving as Director of Church Music here at the First Religious Society. We offer a warm welcome to all participating in our service this morning via the live stream. If you are visiting today or joining us for the first time, we are especially glad that you are with us this morning. The pandemic is a difficult reality, yet it radiates a special call to us to cast aside fear and to love one another. It is a call to look out not only for our own safety and that of our loved ones, but also for the safety and support of all people. Our building may be closed, but our church and our virtual arms have never been more open. If you are joining us online, there are links you can click to see today's order of service and the hymns so that you can sing along. If you joined from YouTube, the links are just below the live stream in the white box. Please click on the word "more" to see them. And if you are watching on the homepage, www.frsuu.org, there are buttons below the live stream for all of those links. With all that is happening in our world these days, we need opportunities to come together in worship, for that is where we can fill our wells, soothe our nerves, and restore ourselves to return to the world and work for justice. In addition to our regular Sunday services this month, we have two other special worship services coming up. This Thursday night, Reverend Rebecca, along with Julie Parker Amory and Jane Toohey, will be offering a quiet service where you can come and share your grief. Please sign up for that so that they know how many people to expect. You will be able to find a link being shown in the chat box now and in your order of service. Next Wednesday evening, on June 17th, there will be an interfaith service open to the community entitled United for Peace. Clergy from different faiths and the mayors of Newburyport and Amesbury will be speaking. More information will be forthcoming. We hope you will be able to join us for one or both of these special services. Every Sunday, we say that it is no small thing that we have gathered. This morning, it is a particularly big thing that we have gathered, so let us give ourselves to it. I welcome one and all to our church and our worship service. If you have a chalice or a candle at home, I invite you to light it now as we enter worship. Thank you. It is good to be together.
Indeed, it is good to be together. Come one, come all to our worship service. Come if you are weary, come if you are angry, grief-stricken, or joy-filled. Come, let us worship together to heal our spirits and renew our hope so that we may return and offer the same to this hurting world. You are faithfully called to worship. Please join in saying the chalice lighting words while Kristen lights the chalice. The words are printed in your order of service. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. Each week, we also light 2 candles of peace, representing 2 places on earth that we lift up and hold as a sacred encounter with our world. There are untold numbers of places on earth that need peace. These 2 we especially hold close in this service and through the week ahead. After each candle is lit, we will speak the words for peace in English, Arabic, and Hebrew. Peace, salam, shalom. This morning, we light also a candle of hope and remembrance in recognition of the COVID-19 pandemic. All those who are working on the front lines, all those who are struggling for their health and who have lost their lives, we will light this candle each time we worship for as long as we live into this worldwide reality. Our first candle this morning is lit for cities, towns, and neighborhoods across the globe that have begun celebrating Pride Month this June. We celebrate the achievements that have been made for LGBTQ justice, and we lift up all the work that remains and needs to continue. Peace, salam, shalom. Our second candle this morning is lit for the Fountain of Praise Church near Houston, Texas, where on Tuesday this week, the funeral and burial for George Floyd will occur. Let us take a moment of silence together, and if you are so moved, I would invite you now to also join me in prayer in silence. Peace, salam, shalom. Please join us now in our opening hymn, Blue Boat Home. It is in your order of service. Let's join together now in our affirmation of faith. The words, again, are printed in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
This is the time in our service when the offering will be gratefully received. This month of June, half of our loose plate offering will go to support the work of the LGBTQ Asylum Task Force in Worcester, Massachusetts, which supports the basic human needs of LGBTQI people seeking asylum in the United States. They depend on donations and volunteers to help asylum seekers. It takes approximately $1,100 per month to provide the basic necessities of shelter, food, and support for each person. This past year, they supported 45 people fleeing persecution and maintained their 100% success rates of folks that were granted asylum. If you are joining us online, there is a link you can use to make your donation online. You can also text a contribution by sending the word GIVE, FRSUU, to the number 73256. And of course, you can always mail a check to the church as well. The offering will now be gratefully received.
A reading in three voices. The Beatitudes for Justice Builders. These words are in your order of service if you'd like to read along or perhaps keep them where you can see them in the days ahead. Blessed are you who can question your own assumptions and listen with an open mind. You will receive new insights beyond your imagining. Blessed are you who suffer the attacks of others to stand up for what is right. You will not be alone, for your courage will inspire others to rise. Blessed are you who build friendships as well as justice. Even when you lose an issue, you will have strengthened the foundation of your community.
Blessed are you who take delight in people. You will not be bored in meetings. Blessed are you who agitate the placid waters of complacency. You will create waves in the inertia of privilege and will know the thrill of riding the surf of change. Blessed are you who lead with enthusiasm and confidence, resisting the temptation to shame the apathetic or self-absorbed. You will inspire curiosity and hope in others.
Blessed are you who play as well as work. You will have more fun, build more energy, and will draw the powers of the impish to your cause. Blessed are you who ask for help in your role as leaders. You will find teachers at every turn, and your work will remain interesting and alive. Blessed are you who, when wrongfully attacked, find safe outlets for your righteous rage. Your mind will be clear, your decisions strategic, and your progress will not be derailed by the backlash of the fearful.
Blessed are you who do not demonize your opponents. Your eyes and your heart will be open. Blessed are you who sing and dance. You will find energy and joy to lift you on your journey. Blessed are you who offer thanks and praise, fivefold for every critique. Your children will want to visit after they are grown. People will want to serve on your committees, and friends will be interested in your opinions.
Blessed are you who study the rhythms of history. You will have knowledge with which to shape the future. Blessed are you who work in coalition rather than in principled isolation. You will meet great people, learn things you didn't realize you needed to know, and have partners for the journey when you are in the lead or in need. Blessed are you who volunteer to be the secretary and take good minutes. Your words will become history, and your efforts will move steadily forward rather than running absent-mindedly over thoroughly discussed ground.
Blessed are you who discover, train, and encourage young leaders. You will see your work expand and grow beyond your own time and talent. Blessed are you who can change your mind. You are still alive. Blessed are you who will not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You will see progress in your lifetime.
Blessed are you with an active spiritual life. You will find perspective and comfort in times of loss and betrayal, and will rise without cynicism to meet the challenges of a new day.
Blessed are you who live from a place of gratitude, for you will know the meaning of life.
This is the time that we take each week to pause and to lift up the joys and the sorrows and concerns of our beloved parishioners and their family and friends. I'll share first those that have been sent in advance, and as I do, I invite you to begin typing into the chat box the joys and sorrows on your mind this morning. Sorry about that. We light a candle of joy for Bob Higgins and his wife Judy, who received the joyous news that they will be first-time grandparents. Their son Chris and his wife Beth, who live in South Boston, are expecting a boy later this year, when hopefully this world will be a bit more safe and sane. We light a second candle of joy this morning, submitted by Lee McLaughlin, who says that Maureen Adams, her wife, was awarded Employee of the Month at Anna Jakes Hospital for her exemplary performance screening patients and staff entering the hospital for COVID-19. She brings joy, humor, and compassion to each person walking through the hospital entrance. And we can add, she brings joy, humor, and compassion to each person she meets. This morning we light a candle of sorrow for Max and Meredith Russell, whose youngest son, Aaron, died last week after a short illness. He will be greatly missed by his family and friends, and we ask that you keep them all in your thoughts and prayers as they adjust to life without him. We also light a candle of sorrow this morning as we hold Erin Hutchinson Himmel and her family, Chris Himmel, Maggie, Charlie, and Sophie Himmel, in our hearts and our prayers as they mourn the death and celebrate the life of Aaron's father, Barry C. Hutchinson. Barry passed away on June 4th, surrounded by family after a long battle with heart and kidney failure. Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. We also light a candle this morning of sorrow and solidarity, and we ask that you hold in your prayers Nathan and Meryl Maleska Wilbur as they remember Meryl's beloved brother Gary, who died suddenly 2 years ago today. He was 67 and Meryl's only sibling. Please also hold in your heart Gary's widow, Donna, who lives in Burlington, Vermont, and has gone on valiantly with her life, honoring and loving Gary every day.
This morning, we share in the joy of Leslie McDonald for Woody Reese, who graduated from Haverhill High this year. We pray with Paula Esty for the soul of our nation. We share in the joy of Diane Stowe-Cohn and family that baby Rose, after 9 weeks in Children's Hospital, has gone home this week. We celebrate with Judy and Gail Fair this week as they celebrate 14 years of marriage.
we light one final candle this morning for all of those joys and sorrows that, although unspoken, remain just as held in the hearts and prayers of our beloved community. I invite you now to join me into a spirit of prayer. Spirit of life and of love, of forgiveness and of humility. Let us open our hearts, still our minds. Let us call forth and hold in our hearts the stories of all who have come before us, the memories of those who are with us today, and the hope for tomorrow and for all of those who will come after us. Let us be thankful for this opportunity for healing, forgiveness, and reconciliation, while knowing that we can never, should never forget what has brought us here today. Let us call upon that light which shines in each of us to give us the strength to walk together into the future. Let us have the wisdom to lovingly have the conversations we need to have with each other, that we must have with each other, in order to grow this faith in radical love and inclusion. Amen. What an exciting day it is to be together. After a brief reflection, we will be welcoming 11 new or returning members to this beloved congregation. 5 years ago today, I was ordained into the Unitarian Universalist ministry. It was a time when the world seemed to be on a upswing, if you think back to where things were then. I knew in my heart that whatever lay ahead, I was born or put here, not to sound melodramatic, to do it with a particular congregation. And I can't imagine anywhere else that I would rather be than with all of you. What times we are living in. In fact, the situation this morning in our worship of having both the celebration of new members and not wanting to lose that or overlook that or not make room for that, while also living in the reality of the pandemic and the systemic racism that is being addressed, the lives that have been lost, even since the protests have gone on, of black people killed. That is a paradox in and of itself. When I first titled this reflection, Holding the Impossible, I thought I'd be talking about the challenges that we have faced this year as a congregation and individually. I thought I'd be talking about the challenges of holding the impossible of COVID-19, closing the building, staying at home, social distancing, all while our church continued and continues to grow in numbers, in spirit, and in depth. I thought I'd be talking about the paradox and the challenge of worrying about our loved ones and how to support one another and our neighbors while living apart and somehow growing closer in our shared humanity. I thought those were big enough challenges and paradox. Those conditions were what I called holding the impossible. And then the murder of George Floyd. And so many others, too many others that came before and, yes, since. The impossible grew bigger. I returned to a poem that I read often. I won't share in its entirety today, but I do encourage you, if you're so moved. Howard Thurman, one of my turn-tos in life and faith, calls it the growing edge. The growing edge, that place where we think, I can't handle anymore. I have no more compassion, strength, energy, life force. Maybe you remember being a parent of a young child as they cried in the night again. And I could offer so many other examples. And yet, somehow, it's there. That extra breath of hope, love, compassion, showing up. So the impossible grew bigger, and it isn't stopping. We have these very challenging questions and paradox of things like, do we gather and protest in times of pandemic? Do I, as a minister, go to protests, letting my congregants know this and parishioners, putting you all in a position of having to decide whether you show up and whether you feel safe doing so? How do we react to this as a church? How do we hold on to our spiritual focus, as I talked about 2 weeks ago, more than focus, purpose? How do we hold on to our spiritual purpose, the underpinning of our belonging to one another, and still engage with the abhorrent realities that are occurring and have been occurring in this country? How do we live and spend days as family members, concerned citizens, and struggling human beings? How do we hold the impossible? One answer for me has been found in embracing paradox. And what I mean by that is that I spent a long time, a long part of my life, and I do believe that I was raised in a culture that taught me this, subliminally and overtly. I spent a long time trying to get to the end, trying to find the right answer, trying to know what to do, basically trying to reconcile life. And generally it was impossible, and yet on those times that it happened, even for a moment, I would be devastated when a moment, an hour, maybe a day later, it fell apart again. I finally had to accept that there is no end. That reconciliation of apparent opposites, that one answer, one solution, one reality where all is copacetic and nice and as it should be, it is not the goal. The goal is being broad enough, deep enough, big enough, real enough, human enough to show up for it all. To cry and laugh every day. Every day. So let's talk about racism for a moment as one example of this. How could I not address this topic today? And I want to say before I begin this part of my reflection that in an ideal world, and I do believe we can do this, worship is a time of healing. Worship is a time of coming together, of finding solace, of renewing our spirits, of remembering the holy, giving us the energy and the power and the conviction we need to go out into the world and do what is right. And if we spend our days doing what is right, going to your doctor's appointments, talking to your adult children about the issues that they're facing, showing up at protests, organizing events, feeding the hungry, then we can gather and worship for sustenance. And that's what I hope we can live into. Working through all the days and returning on the Sabbath to restore. So let's talk about racism as this paradox. We are powerless. We are powerless as individuals to eradicate 401 years of systemic racism and white supremacy. And by doing things, one thing, two things, with commitment and wholeheartedness, we find hope. Our strength is renewed when we give it away in service to our values. I'll say that again. Our strength is renewed when we give it away in service to our values, when we feel powerless and overwhelmed by the enormity of the conditions of this world. That's the time to do something, not because we can fix it all, but because we must. We must. If for no other reason, or shall I say in addition to all the other reasons, we must so we regain connection to our own vitality and sense of purpose. So we are doing things as a congregation, and you're going to hear and read more about those. There'll be a letter going out to the congregation on Tuesday. I do hope you'll read it. It's going to include many ways that you can get involved in this issue with the congregation. There will be an article in the newspaper
I'm told tomorrow that I've written. I hope you share it, its message. The Black Lives Matter banner is on the front of our church building. The message, Black Lives Matter, has been on the front of our church building for a while. It is actually the first of the banner that read, in this congregation, we believe. However, at this time, it needed to stand alone. It needed to be so big and bold, just as the mayor of Washington, D.C. has it painted onto the streets. And we're also going to have yard signs you can buy that will have, along with the Black Lives Matter statement and our church logo, this quote by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." You see, it's no longer acceptable to claim there's nothing we can do here about racism as a predominantly white community. That's a mindset whose time has come to an end. It's a paradox to some, but the truth is we are a predominantly white community and thus hold incredible power that we can use to work toward eradicating systemic racism. It's not about us, and yet it's all about us. I want to share two other things that I turn to in my own efforts at holding the impossible. So there is this embracing the paradox. The other two things that I would offer that I use when things feel and are impossible. One of them is meaning making, and the other is imagination. I know. You thought I was going to say love. But that goes without saying. Love is always part of my answer. It is my theology, whatever the question. I told a congregant a few days ago that I'm angry right now with hope. I don't want to be hopeful right now. So hope and I are not on the best of terms these days. That's okay. That's okay. Because hope isn't my only tool. When hope feels out of reach, or I'm feeling a bit too angry or cynical or exhausted, I turn to one of its bedfellows, which is meaning. I find meaning in moments of genuine connection, conversations with parishioners. I find meaning in learning something new, reading a book about something entirely different for just a little while, or understanding another of life's puzzle, putting another piece in place. So when things are impossible, I turn to meaning making. Sitting in the thunderstorm yesterday afternoon. So too do I turn to imagination. It is our annual ministry theme for next year and the focus of my weekly email series this summer, which I do hope you'll sign up for. There's information in the order of service about that. I use imagination not as folly, but to get unstuck, to wiggle my thinking or ignite my heart. Many of you have heard me talk about this 9 options approach that I have. Whenever I come up against indecision, stickiness, or impossibility, I ask myself, what are 9 options for how to respond right now? It never fails. So embracing paradox, finding meaning, engaging our imagination, belonging, and love. Always love. That's how I'm embracing the impossible, at least for today. Amen. Now we'll move into our ritual, and it is a ritual for all of us. My friends, those 11 people who are covenanting into membership with our congregation today, you are the living examples of paradox. You are joining, promising, coming together as a part of a community, even as we sit in separate spaces, living into new expressions of how we experience church and navigating extraordinarily impossible times. You are our torch bearers. You remind those of us who are members, for a short or a long time, why we chose to belong here, why being a part of this community and congregation is such an important part of how we hold the impossible. In just a moment, we will all participate in our new member covenanting ritual. The words are printed in your order of service. We are inviting everyone to participate, everyone, by speaking aloud your answers, or even better, typing them into the chat box if you're able. And I encourage all of you watching, our members and friends and visitors, to ask yourself the same questions that I will be asking our newest joining or rejoining members. Do you commit yourself to these promises? For we are here to welcome and commit all of our hearts and our lives to these principles. If, by the way, you want to join the congregation and weren't able to get your information to Nicole Saleme, our Director of Community Engagement, you can put your name in the chat box and she'll reach out to you, or you could email her directly. So let us turn now our hearts and open them wide to our newest and returning members, Lily Elizabeth Amory, Leon Parker Amory, Holly Flanagan, John Flanagan, Lance Heidi, Leslie McDonald, Zara Robb, Lucy Riddell, Kathy Welch, and Betsy Woodman. Do you promise to bring your whole self to this congregation? This includes sharing your beauty, your gifts and talents, your pain, and the parts of you in need of healing, so that we may grow stronger as a congregation and more whole in our shared humanity.
We do.
Do you bring a commitment to the principles of Unitarian Universalism?
We do.
To love?
We do.
To community?
We do.
And to the other members of the First Religious Society, do you welcome these new members into our church community, covenanting to walk together with them in your shared spiritual and life journeys?
We do.
Do you promise to be open to what they bring to this beloved community? And will you seek to be in right relationship with them and all who may follow them through these doors?
We will.
And to our children and youth, do you welcome these new members to our community?
We do.
Will you share your gifts, your love, and your light with them? And will you get to know their gifts, their love, and their light?
We will.
Now to everyone, members, friends, visitors of all ages, to all who are gathered here today, are you open to the possibilities that love brings?
We are.
We welcome you, our new members, and celebrate our beloved community.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be
Isn't that beautiful? I have to say that doing that through video, even though we're not together, there's something about seeing people's faces close up that I watched it a lot. Please join me now in the unison benediction. The words are printed in your order of service. May the love which overcomes all differences, which heals all wounds, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, be in us and among us, now and always. My friends, as we go from here this day, as we enter into the day, the week ahead, may we go so knowing that we can find the strength we need, knowing that holding the impossible, though it may be difficult, is truly a privilege. It is an opportunity to go deeper. It is an opportunity to find the growing edge, to hold the paradoxes, to make meaning, to love, to imagine, and to turn again to your neighbors and to all those and serve. Go in peace, my friends, and return again in great joy. Amen, and blessed be.